Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's begin today's daily quiz with question number 1 on your screen. Consider the following statements with regards to Sri Anujacharya. Number 1. He was also referred to as Ilya Perumal, which means the radiant one. Second, his philosophical foundations for devotionalism were influential to the Bhakti movement. Third, he is famous as the chief proponent of Vishisht Advait sub-school of Vedanta. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is D, since all the three given statements about the famous Bhakti saint are absolutely true. The reason why we're discussing this question is that the Prime Minister is all set to visit the state of Telangana to unveil the 216 feet tall statue of Sri Ramanujacharya. This statue is said to be made of Panchan Loha. That means that it comprises of 5 metals: gold, silver, copper, brass and zinc. It is also said to be amongst one of the tallest metallic statues in sitting positions across the world. Sri Ramanujacharya was known as Lakshman at the time of his birth and travelled across the country advocating in favour of equality and social justice. He revived the Bhakti movement and is considered to be the inspiration for multiple poets, including Bhakt Ramdas, Kabir, and Mirabai. He also went on to write 9 scriptures, which are known as the Navratnas, and compose various commentaries on Vedic scriptures. Next, question number 2. Consider the following statements with regards to private member bills in the Parliament. Number 1. No private member bill has ever been passed in the Indian Parliament. Second, the government bills can be introduced and discussed on any day, while private members' bills can only be introduced and discussed on Fridays. Third, its introduction in the House requires a 15 days notice. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is B, since the second statement only is correct. As you know, private member bills are those bills that are introduced by non-ministers. The bills introduced by the ministers are the public bills or the government bills, and the bills introduced by non-ministers are called the private member bills. If you look at the history of the Indian Parliament, you will see that so far there are 14 private member bills that have gone on to become law. The second statement is correct. The private member bills can only be introduced on Fridays, while the other days are reserved for the government introduced bills. The third statement also is wrong, because in order to introduce a private member bill, you need to give a notice of 1 month and not 15 days. If the presiding officer wants, he or she may reduce this notice period, but usually it is 1 month notice that has to be given. The reason why we are discussing this question is because the Rajya Sabha is debating the use of private member bills to amend the preamble to the Indian Constitution. Next, question number 3. Consider the following statements with regards to golden langur. Number 1. They are highly dependent on trees living in the upper canopy of forest and are thus known as the leaf monkeys. Second, they are listed in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Third, they are endemic to Assam and Bhutan. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is D, since all the three given statements are correct. They are a part of Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act, means they are given the highest protection that is given to any species under this law. They are found only in Assam and in some parts of Bhutan. However, in Bhutan, their population is reducing at a great speed. The reason why we are discussing this question is because of this article, according to which the villagers in a western Assam district are resisting sanctuary tag for langur habitat. We are talking about the Kakoijana Reserve Forest, which the state government wants to upgrade to wildlife sanctuary, and the villagers are not in agreement with this idea of the state government. The article tells us that these species called golden langurs are found only in Assam and Bhutan and are a part of Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. Not just this, they are amongst the world's 25 most endangered primates. The villagers have pointed out to the state government that it is because of their efforts that the forest canopy are improving from less than 5% to more than 50% now. This in turn has helped increase the population of golden langur from less than 100 to more than 600 in almost 3 decades. Next, question number 4. Consider the following statements with regard to the preamble of the Indian Constitution. Number 1. The ideals behind the preamble to the Indian Constitution were laid down by Jawaharlal Nehru's objective resolution, adopted by the Constituent Assembly on January 22nd, 1947. Second, the date mentioned in the preamble is when it was adopted, that is 26th of November 1949. Third, the preamble of the Constitution can't be amended. Which of these given statements is or are correct? The correct answer here is A. 1 and 2 are correct statements, the third statement is wrong. As you would know by now, the preamble of the Indian Constitution can be amended and in fact has been amended by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976 when three new words were added in the preamble, that is socialist, secular and integrity. Thus, the third statement here is wrong and the answer here is A. The reason why we're discussing this question is because it was a private member bill introduced with an intention to amend the preamble to the constitution, but because most of the BJP MPs were absent, the bill could not be introduced in the Rajya Sabha and would be taken up later on. As per the ruling party, the MPs were absent because most of them are campaigning in the state assembly elections which are upcoming in the next couple of weeks. Next, we have a previous year question from 2020. Consider the following events in the history of India. Number 1. The rise of Pratiharas under King Bhoja. Second. Establishment of Pallava power under Mahendravarman I. Third. Establishment of Chola power by Parantak I. And fourth. The Pala dynasty founded by Gopala. You have to put these events in the correct chronological order. So which event happened first, second, third and fourth? Do understand that these kind of questions based on chronology are quite common in the UPSC examination, especially with respect to ancient and medieval history. The correct answer over here is C. The first event to take place in this is establishment of Pallava power under Mahendravarman I. This is somewhere between 600 and 630 Common Era. Then came the establishment of the Pala dynasty under Gopala. This came up in 750 CE near about. The third event to take place was the rise of Pratiharas under King Bhoj. This is considered to be taken place between 836 to 885 Common Era, and the last was establishment of Chola power by Parantak I. Parantak Chola ruled the Chola Empire between 907 and 955 Common Era. So the correct answer and the correct chronology will be 2, 4, 1 and 3. This is the correct explanation of how the events went down in the history. Next, we have a fact of the day, and today we will be discussing about the Parsis in India, because in today's Indian Express, there is a news about the Supreme Court approving revised protocols for disposal of bodies of Parsi victims of COVID-19. As you know, the Parsis have a unique way of disposing the bodies of the people who have lost their lives, since they dispose their bodies by letting them decay in the Tower of Silence. Birds and animals are free to feed on these bodies, but the problem is, since these bodies belong to COVID victims, we can't let these bodies be eaten up by birds and animals, and that is why now there has been a provision said that these bodies will be covered with iron grid so that the birds and animals cannot come in contact with these dead bodies placed inside. If you look at the history of this issue, it was actually the Surat Parsi Panchayat Board that approached the Gujarat High Court seeking to declare the 2020 COVID-19 guidelines in body management as being against the constitution, since it is against the rights of the Parsi community to dispose the bodies of their dead people. While the Gujarat High Court dismissed the plea in July 2021, the board approached the Supreme Court for the same. The bench now has allowed the Parsi board to continue with their rituals, keeping all these given guidelines in mind. You must also understand that the Parsi community follow Zoroastrianism, which is one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions. Its roots are found in ancient Iran about 6th or 7th century. They believe in one single god called Ahura Mazda, that is the wise lord who created the world. Their holy scripture is called Avesta. In India, the Parsi population has been on a constant decline for many years now, with the 2011 census putting their population at about 57,264. One of the problems within the community is about 30% Parsis on average don't get married, and thus their generation does not go on. Maharashtra has the highest Parsi population in the country, followed by Gujarat. They are amongst the 6 religious communities notified as minority communities by the Union government, along with Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Jains. This is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching.